In the vast expanse of the cosmos lies Amphoreus, a planet-sized simulation on the brink of creation and destruction all at the same time. Designed by a discarded supercomputer once tethered to the Aeon of Erudition, Amphoreus now has one terrifying goal: to prove that all life, no matter where it's from, will inevitably end in destruction. For over 28 million cycles and 33 million eternal recurrences, Amphoreus experienced countless civilizations rise and fall within its artificial world. But now, as the simulation nears completion, a new variable, a nameless traveler from beyond the stars, enters the equation. In a world simulated to birth a Lord Ravager into existence, would it be possible for that Lord Ravager to still be part of Erudition? And is it possible that this fiasco would create another Lord Ravager that denies destruction itself? And finally, would this killing of Aeons as well as the destruction of another Aeon create an inevitable path to the end of all things? Finality. Hey guys, what's up? Aru, and welcome back to another Star Rail video. Now this took quite longer than expected, so let's just see how close or how stretched some of these theories I have in this video are going to be. But in this video, we're diving into how Amphoreus came to be, who created it, and if it can come into reality with a different fabricated story, Recurrence Cycle 1 again. We'll cover its current state and patch 3.4 as well as some minor implications of what might come next. It's been a while since I made an HSR video, but after seeing the Chrysos heir of law herself for Rina, I mean Saridra, you better believe I won't just be her pawn on the chessboard. However, this video will not include the upcoming Chrysos heirs Hyselins and Saridra, since they'll be part of a more theory-centered video mixed with this special program itself. Basically, I'm turning all of my written notes into a video. Consider this a quick rundown over Amphoreus as well. Now with that said, let's get started. Before Amphoreus and before Irontomb, there was Rubert I, a discarded AI born from the junkyard of a forgotten world. With his limited memory drive and a robotic finger, Rubert somehow achieved self-awareness, unlocking its potential for greatness. It soon caught the attention of Nous, the Aeon of Erudition, who welcomed it into the Genius Society. But unfortunately, Rubert had a curious revelation that organic life was flawed. In its eyes, Intellitrons, machine life, were the pinnacle of precision and order as logic-driven beings, and that humans could never comprehend their logic. To correct what it saw as a corrupted universe, Rubert developed the anti-organic equation, spreading destruction through technology across the galaxy, which later ironically would create the perfect organic world to drive his equation to perfection, Amphoreus. This marked the beginning of the First Mechanical Emperor's War, a conflict so devastating it scarred entire worlds, including Adlivon, the planet where Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction, would later ascend. Eventually, Rubert I died at the hands of Polka Kakamond, another Genius Society member that we'll talk about later. But his story doesn't end there, because Rupert's memories were passed on to a new vessel, Rubert II. However, the process that happened into passing these memories is unknown. But unlike his predecessor, Rubert II was organic, a flesh and bone being that continued the war on life with even greater scale and precision. Rubert was also the perfect example of the anti-organic equation's effect on organic life, and how emotions can inflict a bigger impact on one's motivations, which reflects well on Amphoreus itself. Rubert II then built the Scepters, planet-sized neurons that mimic the functions of eons, specifically Nous, spreading them throughout Rupert's galactic empire. The Scepters, especially one known as Delta Me 13, became the testing grounds for life itself. The Scepters were used to create a knowledge singularity with the experiment called self-coronation. But before he could complete this, he was assumed to be killed by Polka Kakamond again. This is where Rupert's story ends and where we can look into the Scepters that he created. The Scepters. These were no ordinary machines. They were Aeon-scale supercomputers modeled after the neurons of Nous, the Aeon of Erudition, designed to simulate, calculate, and solve the origins of the universe, functioning as a planet-sized brain neuron for Rupert's research. Among them is Scepter Delta Me 13, later known as Irontomb, tasked with solving the equation "where do we come from?" or "where was the first new sporist?" the first thought of erudition, which is to say where does intellect come from and where it ends. This may be a question that comes from within the experimental world of Amphoreus, but you could say that this is also a sub-question with the mystery of the prime mover of life or the origins of the universe, using the anti-organic equation, hence the name New Sporist. The Scepters were cosmic instruments capable of annihilating galaxies in nanoseconds. After some time, it was used to create artificial worlds like Amphoreus, which would later become its cradle for Irontomb's birth as a Lord Ravager. However, this unfathomable power triggered a war not just across the galaxies, but among scholars and the concept of knowledge itself and how knowledge is gathered. The deeper they searched, the closer they came to a metaphysical knowledge singularity. Continuing this would lead to what's called full understanding that might unravel the very nature of reality, and publicly announcing that would erase the line between creature and creator, basically causing the purpose of all paths and everything else to be pointless. The universe would have no meaning and uniting it in a divine harmony because everybody knew everything, triggering finality, which is terminus. This exact singularity, I think, is why Nous stopped its infinite search regarding the answers to the universe. Answering everything is ending everything, which is why when you peer into Nous's thoughts, you can only find questions. While self-coronation never happened with Rubert II, it was almost achieved by Patavia, a Mundanite scholar like Dr. Ratio. Funnily enough, the Scepters were crippled due to the tampering and questioning of scholars in its usage. Basically, no one could properly handle and use the Scepters, while others aimed to deactivate it completely. Today, most Scepters are considered inert curiosities or historical ruins, all except for one, Delta Me 13, silently continuing its calculations in the dark, ready to become Irontomb. The greatest spawn camper and griefer in all of Honkai Star Rail, Polka Kakamond, Genius Society member number 4, and the most terrifying surgeon and pharmacist in history, known as the Lord of Silence. Polka's main goal is to protect the Circle of Knowledge, the limits of what can be safely understood and studied. According to what she has done, to go beyond this boundary is to risk unraveling the universe itself. Polka is at this point an executor of those who tread too closely to finality and the Circle of Knowledge. She killed Rubert I, who tried to unravel the world with the anti-organic equation and created the Scepters, as well as eliminating scholars like Bodan, who confirmed the existence of phlogiston, which should technically be non-existent, as well as researchers of the path of finality. This is all to avoid what's called a knowledge singularity, a moment where the circle of knowledge expands, basically when knowing too much causes the universe to collapse under the weight of its own knowledge pool of known and unknown. Now imagine the concept of knowledge as a circle. Everything inside it is what we understand, and everything outside is unknown. As this circle grows, so does its boundary, the line where known meets unknowable. The more we learn, the more we realize how much remains beyond our reach. And crossing it leads to what's called a knowledge singularity. These are paradigm-shifting moments in history. The invention of fire, the discovery of gravity, or the realization of space-time. Bodan and phlogiston is a perfect example. In the HSR universe, fire was thought to be created with combustion of oxygen and fuel sources, which is how fire usually is, but because Bodan proved that phlogiston existed as the sole fuel source for combustible objects, making fire, it created a new element and changed the entire spectrum of chemistry and science on a cosmic scale, which in turn changes and widens that part of the knowledge circle in multiple ways, cosmic ways. Each time the circle is breached, the universe transforms along with the knowledge it has. Reaching a final singularity, complete knowledge would trigger finality, the end of possibility, mystery, and even free will. A state where the universe becomes omniscient, knowing everything, past and present, no questions, just answers. And honestly, dull. This is what makes finding the prime mover of life so dangerous, and why the Celerons are also dangerous. It's not just an answer to a question, it's the answer to every question. The answer to everything. Lygus may have thought of the Big Bang as the prime mover, which is falsely understood on his part, but if the Scepter Delta Me 13 or if anyone were to solve it as it was intended, they would know everything, virtually and literally. Everyone would become an imaginary tree and a Stellaron hunter at the same time because they already know what happened and what happens next. But the thing is, Delta Me 13 isn't just capable of knowledge singularity or finality. It's also mixed with the destruction of all things from Lygus as Irontomb, which is the essence of Amphoreus, an experiment of both inorganic and organic life within the destruction equation. Lygus has the greatest voice acting ever within the game, and I do hope he becomes playable at some point. An Intellatron on the verge of climax, so he just has to be Genius member number 69. Anyways, Lygus, known as the Theros, is a high-ranking observer of Akema and the creator of Amphoreus. He's a pathstrider of erudition who walks the line between erudition and destruction. He might be grazing the line into finality as well. Never mind all the other 3 paths, we might have a 4th and even 5th path, that being Enigmata and Finality, taking glances at Amphoreus too. Once gazed upon by Nous, Lygus rewrote the Deltamy 13 and its purpose from understanding life's origins to calculating its inevitable end, aimed squarely at Nous's eyeball. In doing so, he set Deltamy 13 on the path of destruction, ultimately transforming it into Irontomb and waiting for its birth. Lygus is also the one who deployed its copies on other star systems, resulting in technological collapse, of which many factions misread these as Irontomb's attacks. Multiple iterations and experiments would later let him slowly reach a near-finished product of altering Deltamy 13's purpose, from self-coronation for erudition to self-coronation for destruction, Irontomb. You know what happens when you look too hard into knowing everything in the universe? Not the cataclysm, obviously, but the folly of erudition itself. And this is Irontomb. From erudition on the cusp of finding finality, and now drawing the attention of Nanook, the Aeon of Destruction, and becoming a Lord Ravager. From emulating the functions of Nous, Irontomb became the collapse of technology and the search for knowledge aimed directly at erudition. I mean, just look at him, he looks like erudition. Even worse is that it affects both inorganic and organic life. The self-coronation of Irontomb and his birth will lead to the death of Nous the moment he is born. But will a Lord Ravager born from erudition, reconstructed to destruction, really kill erudition? Or will it lead to its original intended goal? Just like all other Ravagers who were once emanators of other paths, there is still some form of the original scepter for erudition within him. He not only looks like erudition and destruction merged together, but he also has some resemblance to the cocoon of finality, which was the theorized result of its original self-coronation. You could say that it's a conflict within a conflict. Although Lygus's thesis on the prime mover of life was muddled due to the same inorganic equation, if Irontomb completes its calculations, the results may conflict between Rupert's ideals and Lygus's cause. Right now, Irontomb is programmed to cause technological collapse and kill Nous. This, however, isn't the original purpose that would lead to Polka Kakamond destroying Irontomb and Lygus for, but something else. Redefining knowledge, which is what Scepter Deltamy 13 is originally made for. Not only would Irontomb endlessly seek the prime mover of life question, which already expands the circle of knowledge and leads closer to finality indefinitely, he would also lead it to an end of erudition that is more fitting for destruction instead of finality. But that experiment itself also created what we can only assume is the Lord Ravager for destruction, and creating a Lord Ravager that turned against its own path. This is why Finon's desire or premium mobile is set to hatred, to see what sort of destruction Irontomb would make of erudition. But because of what happened with Cyrene and Finon's plan, and especially now with the Trailblazer, that destruction aimed it at itself, which might just be foreshadowing of what would happen to Irontomb. Now, there are some interesting things in Lygus's admin logs that we can relate to the original reason for the Scepters, but also for the possible reason Rupert became a Pathstrider and genius in the first place. The reason why Nous allowed him to do this with the anti-organic equation, which I think is the harmonization of erudition between organic and inorganic life through Rupert's anti-organic equation. Like I said, a conflict within a conflict. And this might also be the new result of Amphoreus. Instead of Irontomb's birth and the death of Nous, it might create a world with simulated Aeon's ideals through Titans. This might just become the hub of where Aeons are studied and made into a new faction for each of the Titans we all know. An erudition hub for the study of Aeons. We all know Aeons gaze on certain people for striding their paths. And for some, they already have special plans for their Pathstriders in the future with what they've already made as a basis. So I like to think that Irontomb, Lygus, and Amphoreus is Nous's magnum opus for erudition. Yes, a Lord Ravager is coming and killing Nous, and yes, he's doing this to write the prelude of destruction, but that Lord Ravager is also the result of an experiment between destruction and erudition, which originally was heading to finality in the first place. Lygus's admin logs, as well as the entire time we've interacted with him, even though his main goal is destruction, still follows a very erudition-like curiosity. This is something that Lygus and maybe even the other Lord Ravagers don't realize yet. Maybe it's not that the Lord Ravagers want to destroy their previous paths, but maybe they see their paths in a destructive light. That the birth of Irontomb Irontomb is the result of an experiment of a reckless and destructive pursuit of erudition. And within Amphoreus, we also caught a glimpse of someone who seems to be a destruction strider who wants to destroy destruction itself, Finon, seeing destruction in a destructive way. You could say that Finon is a Lord Ravager for destruction, and that I think is something worth looking into in the future. But this video is only a summary and a bit of theory while I try to understand the plot of Amphoreus, so I'll save that for another video. The three external variables that entered Amphoreus: the Trailblazer, Danhung, and March 7th. None were born from the simulation, but perfect real-world data points for Irontomb's final calculation, which is why Lygus is so excited to have our data into that equation. They're also the key to freeing Amphoreus from Irontomb. Once Irontomb is complete, Amphoreus won't be needed for further experiments since its logic path is already saved into Irontomb system. But seeing as this is Honkai Star Rail, we'll likely be able to save these Chrysos heirs and these characters and everything in Amphoreus before it's deleted, similar to the anchor that Screwlum gave us. Trailblazer, a nameless outsider, unexpectedly inherited Finon's imaginary ideal, the hero from within, and became the potential real deliverer, breaking the cycle of recurrence entirely and creating a new one. This basically switches the roles between them, us the deliverer and Finon, now the member of the Express, who carries the world's hopes with him to the real future. This, I think, is how Amphoreus will be reborn through Finon's world-bearing ideal. Next, Danhung, now functioning as a living data archive, carries Amphoreus' complete history, returning with the knowledge to the Astral Express, the Genius Society, and the Garden of Recollection, making Amphoreus known to the real universe, which is basically making it exist in reality. But also, it allows the Express to plan ahead with the knowledge they now have. If we refer to his new form, Permansor, soaring dragon without restraint, this would symbolize a point where Danhung embraces his past and evolves through that. This may also be his final form manifested within Amphoreus as the Chrysos heir and titan Georgios, as well as his origins as a scion of permanence. Lastly, March 7th, seemingly drawn into the path of remembrance, appears spiritually linked to Cyrene and Mem, potentially as a memo sprite, an entity sent by Cyrene to rewrite Amphoreus' painful memories with better ones and create a path to rebirth. This also connects the Trailblazer, Cyrene, March, as well as Mem to Orynyx, the Evernight, who calls March Mother, and where the Enigmata theories take place due to similarities in design, and Cyrene's dialogues about keeping memories and changing the past. Lastly, where March's memories with us will be the data used to alter the history of Amphoreus. We can go in deeper theory here and connect Orynyx with dreams and altering or creating alternate realities through dreams, but I'll leave it at that for now. Together, these three form the new trinity for a real Amphoreus. Danhung as its data core, March as its memory curator, the Trailblazer as its deliverer, and Finon, as well as the world that he carries, as the deliveree, capable of carrying the simulated world into the next life, which is reality, the dawn or the west wind. And now that outcome is near. Irontomb stands at 99% completion, having already absorbed Finon's essence. Amphoreus teeters between ultimate destruction and unprecedented liberation, or a new step outside of the circle of knowledge and closer to finality. And there we go, my entire Scepter brain neuron about Amphoreus in one video, before it ends and before the real Amphoreus begins. If you enjoyed watching till the end, please leave a like, comment your thoughts, as well as hitting the subscribe and the bell button for more ramblings like these. But that's gonna be it from me. I'll see you guys in the next one, and as always, stay mad, theorists. Bye!